Guys, welcome back. As me and Maddie do, we have a guest today and we did an incredible interview and then we started
Yeah.
debrief and I'm like, save it for the pod. Let me hit
Save for the
record again.
pod.
You were saying we did not expect that interview to take the turns that it did, but
uh
incredibly interesting.
Oh yeah, it was
Yeah.
with Gillis, and he is
Yep.
a functional health coach, and I am a mentee in functional coaching systems. It's their mentorship that him and Alyssa run that together, and excuse me, had a burp. And Alyssa, at this point, you've already listened to the episode. It's probably the one or not one or two guest episodes previous, so a couple months
Mm-hmm.
back. But yeah, that was such an interesting conversation. We had plans to talk about different things, and we just like to like. If you guys noticed our guest episodes, we very free flowing because I don't like the question answer type thing.
It's authentic to who we
Yeah,
are because we
yeah.
pull out so much knowledge just
Mhm.
from the conversation. Like we dove into a lot and it's
Mhm.
really eye-opening, his experience in the clinical world, his experience with an autoimmune um and just like who he is as a person. And like you
Mhm.
wouldn't understand who he is as a coach unless you're hearing what his
That's
clinical
true.
experience was. So it was
Yeah.
really interesting. And like I think he's our second um guy guest,
Mhm.
which is like really funny because when we ever first started, I was like, I don't want any guys on the podcast, like in my head. And then Maddie was like, pitching, like she had said Gillis, and I was like, well, my friend Matt is also fabulous too. Like, actually, you know what? Change of plans. We're having the most interesting people on, period. Like, whoever
Yeah.
they are here for the girls.
Yeah, I love interesting people in general, and,
Yeah.
we could still make sure at the end of the year we have more women than men. So right
Which
now
we
we are at
will. Yeah.
yeah, right now we're only at 2 men for the year, so you guys there might not be any more, I don't know, there might be, who knows?
Eh.
But yeah,
If
that
we
was such
could
a
interview someone like a bravo-lebrity man, okay, manifesting. That's
who?
who I
Who?
want to
Who
talk
who
to.
would
Ooh. Oh, so many. Okay, so many. Who is the most attainable?
No. No, no,
Probably.
no. Oh, go
Oh,
ahead, go
oh,
ahead.
oh. Okay, no, no, no. Okay, not attainable. Okay,
Because 'Cause they're not
okay.
attainable.
Some of them 100% would be. If I'd be like, we'll give you like $500 for an appearance, some people might be like, sure. Like, you
Where's
know what I
that
mean?
coming from?
What do you mean?
Who's paying for that, the podcast?
I'll pay for it myself. I want to interview a Bravo celebrity. But maybe Joe Judice from New Jersey. I want to hear about his experience in prison and then in ICE. And I just want to hear
Ooh,
his whole experience.
ooh.
West from Summer House would be
I
incredibly attainable.
literally was going to say that so I can ask him, "How the fuck did you drop the bag on Sierra?"
To be fair, and this is like coming out way later, like I started watching part one of the reunion, but like if they never had sex, like we're adults here. You know what I mean? Like I understand she's guarded and she wants to build a connection, but you can't expect him to like, not let, and maybe he didn't sleep with people. I don't actually know. We got to finish watching it, but like, come on, girl. Like either like, just be like, you know what? I'm not ready for this, or I feel like you're not ready. So we need to cut ties. But like they're sleeping in bed all the time. They're making out. It's like it felt a little juvenile, to be totally honest.
Mm. I didn't
And like
watch the reunion yet, so I don't
I haven't
have the
watched
full
only watched like the first 20 and it was like
okay.
mostly about like Carl and Lindsay, which like we are like team Hub House. I don't like Carl is just like fucking annoying me. Like just the
Yep.
veneers and the crazy hair. Like what you saw that TikTok I sent you?
Ah, wait, please, we're gonna put that up.
It literally was like it looked like it was like on fire or some crazy shit. Like what is with Bravo celebrities also getting the craziest veneers?
I don't know. It's like get a little bit of money. You know what? I did see someone say like two things when it
He's like
comes to
the
get yeah,
he does like these
it
weird like it's scary. It's really
it
scary.
was
It's giving the Grinch.
It's giving delusional. I did see someone say, 'cause, Joel was thinking about getting, LASIK, and someone was saying that, if you talk to a lot of eye doctors, most of them don't have LASIK, so that's, like, a red flag to, like,
Yeah, yeah.
why you shouldn't get LASIK. But I bring that up because the same things about dentists.
Mm,
Most dentists do not have veneers. It's like us, like, most
yeah,
health coaches don't lift weights. That would be, like, interesting, why not, right? We do. We lift weights because we encourage it and we know it's good for you, but why don't dentists have
absolutely.
veneers?
So I think veneers are good for special
Scary.
cases. Well, if you're
Okay.
like a hockey player and your teeth get fucking knocked out, or if
Uh,
you never had braces and they were all messed up and like you tried braces and they never worked and like you were just really self-conscious of your smile. But
mhm.
these people are getting like horse teeth. They're white as like the
Yeah.
fucking day is long. It looks so ridiculous. Like they need a little bit of a coffee stain on them because it's not believable. It's like all I see is like bing.
Yeah, it looks like,
And it's like chunky teeth. Like it's like they feel like you're like "Arr, arr."
you know whose veneers, like, every time I see them, like, ay, 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 like, why did you do that? She had such a pretty natural smile. Miley Cyrus. Her veneers are
Yeah,
rough.
they're pretty bad.
Like I think there is another actress, I'm like, if she gets veneers, it will ruin her. Oh, what's her face? Zendaya. If she gets veneers, I will literally
I
cry.
saw a TikTok about that. About like her smile, her teeth. Like if like somebody was agreeing with you, like if she ever
Yes,
gets veneers, like
because it's, like, slightly one is slightly lo I'm like, "It's so cute, she's beautiful," like,
and it's part of your like kind of your personality,
identity.
your
Yes.
identity. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, but,
Mm.
speaking of Zendaya, did you watch Challengers yet?
No, and I need to. What? Oh, no? What's the tea?
I'm not gonna spoil anything.
Okay.
Um, but it'll be out for a while now, and I've watched it on Flickster, so, like, I didn't, like, go to the movie theater. I don't even know if it was out in movie theaters. I don't know where it was.
It was,
Anyway,
yeah, I think so.
okay. Me and my legal downloading things. Um, but I was not happy with the ending. Didn't
Oh,
like the
okay,
ending.
okay.
Um, the cinematic shots and way you probably seen maybe a few spoilers on TikTok, but the way they shot it, the angles, and then just some of the acting, I was like, "Oh, that was fantastic." But the ending and like I don't know, I didn't like it, that part. But like the way they shot
Mm,
it and the things that were happening, I was like, "Oh my god," like going crazy for it. But I just wasn't happy with the whole concept. Like it left me I
okay.
had more questions. Like this ending, I hated that
Mm,
ending. So yeah.
okay. Understood. Well, I'm gonna do my homework and I'm gonna watch
Yeah.
and we'll see. I don't know. I've been hearing it's like a big sexy thing, so I'm here for it.
It definitely was. I watched it with Joel and he was like, "That wasn't that great." It was for the girls. It was not for the guys. Like Zendaya
Yeah,
is beautiful, of course, but like,
yeah. I
you
had
know,
James watch he'll watch whatever with me, but, like, I was like, "Oh, I really wanna watch Saltburn," because, like, Jacob
mhm,
Elordi is, like, so hot, and, like, I love
mhm.
like, I think Barry Keoghan's, like, pretty hot too. The other day, I called him Gary Keoghan. How embarrassing.
Scary.
I was talking to my friend, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, and, like, Gary Keoghan," and she goes, "Isn't his name Barry?" And I was like, "I'm embarrassed." Um,
Gary.
but he was like, that movie was just, like, kind of like, I don't get it. He was and I was like, "Honestly, like, it was a pretty sexy thing, you know, I get it." It's, like, kind of, just about like, it's kind of more just like a psychological, like, "Fuck you,"
It
and
was.
I liked that, and, yeah, I don't know. So, I'm gonna watch it, and I'll make him watch it with me, and we'll report back, and hopefully, it's an enjoyable, big, sexy thing, and we'll just go from there.
We love that. One thing that just happened, so obviously this is like a couple months after, but nothing crazy.
Oh, I
So
go,
last week
"Yes."
are you anime?
Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Last week when we were podcasting, I was still like heavily sick, wasn't I?
Oh,
Last week?
yeah, you were so ill.
I I did not realize how delusional I was until like sitting here now podcasting of sound mind. But think about how many people like go out and do stuff when they're that ill. Like, go to
What do you mean?
work, go to
Oh,
parties, like, go, like, out and
if you're going to a
about.
party like that, get the fuck away from me.
I know, like, our friends invited us to, what's it called? To do a bonfire, and this was before I got Joel sick. So my sister got me sick, and then she got her husband sick, and then I got sick, and then I got Joel sick. So I literally spread Bree's plague has spread to everyone.
Remy,
Um,
watch out.
literally. And our friends invited us to come over for a bonfire. We haven't seen them in forever, X, Y, and Z. And so that was on like Saturday. And Joel told me on like Thursday. And I was like, and he wasn't sick yet. I was like, I'm still kind of sick. And even though you're not sick, you're probably carrying it. And also, the friend's wife has MS. I'm like, let's not do that.
Oh, yeah.
Let's not, and they have children. I'm like, let's not spread diseases to people who are sickly. So
Yeah.
then we canceled and he got really sick. Saturday and Sunday, he was like sick as a dog. So I'm like, good thing we
OMG.
canceled and weren't like rude. But like, think about how people are like, oh, sorry, I'm a little sick. I'm like, why are you here? Why?
Honestly, in a post-COVID world, I mean, obviously COVID is still, affects a lot of people, but I did not realize how kind of like gross I probably was and like would go places sick or like be okay if somebody was
Yeah.
sick around me. And now
Hmm.
I'm like, get the fuck away from, yeah, I stand on business.
Hmm.
Don't fucking come near me. When I have children, you're not gonna like kiss my child on the face. Like, I
Oh, yeah.
hate that. Like
Isn't
holding my little beautiful baby and like trying to kiss them on the face. Get out of here.
isn't
Gross.
there a disease you can give babies by kissing them on lips?
Definitely.
I feel like I've seen that on TikTok and like moms getting in fights with their mother-in-law because their mother-in-laws are like, full
I
on like
mean,
making out with babies.
I mean, they could definitely get like RSV. They could get any
Yes.
cough,
What's
really, like
RSV?
any R respiratory S C something. I don't know. But like kills infants because they just can't handle it. Like an adult can get it as well, but for infants, it's
Mm,
like very, very dangerous.
mm,
And infants are, they can only be vaccinated at a certain age. And so it's
mhm,
like grandma or auntie over here, don't be kissing up on my baby. Like
mhm,
that, I just like weird, like weird thing to like feel so inclined to do. Like snuggle on the baby if you want, hold baby. You don't need to put
mhm.
your face on baby. Like, ugh.
Yeah. No, I firmly agree with that. So I didn't go anywhere except grocery shopping, but like not talking to
Yeah.
anyone. Like in general, people like you shouldn't like lick your hands after you grocery. I assume everyone's sick when I'm grocery shopping, to be honest, because like
Yeah.
you're in the public. So like I don't feel bad about doing that, but I didn't do
Sure.
like literally anything else. I just stayed home. But I was just like, wow, I was really delusional when we podcasted on Friday.
You were funny. I mean, like funny as fuck. Like sometimes,
Delusional, funny.
like honestly, sometimes the delusionalness of like lack of sleep, being sick, all
Mhm.
that business is just like you're in like a silly goofy mood and it's like I don't really know what I'm saying, but like I think this is pretty great. And it's just like I'm really excited to listen back to that episode.
I'm excited slash not, so we'll just hope that was a good episode.
No, it was
Last
actually fantastic.
I think it was. Last thing I'll say is, like, I don't know what was wrong with my brain cells, finishing our interview with Gillis, but, like, I was so awkward, so I apologize. I was like, "I guess that's it." Like, maybe from
Okay,
now on, you, like, end
hey.
the conversation literally.
Yeah. No, I mean it's the culture of like being on a Zoom call because like right when you're on FaceTime with your friends, it's like, all right, bye, talk to you later. But like on a Zoom, it's like you're trying to press the button and then you gotta like hit it twice, and then it's like, okay,
Mhm.
and it's fucking weird as shit. I don't know why, but
I know.
it is. And everybody's gonna agree with it. Okay. So like don't feel bad that you're weird and
Okay.
awkward and like nobody likes you and you're a loser.
These are thoughts that are everyday occurrence for me, so thank you for putting them out there.
I feel like that's some
Uh,
like type of like sister shit. Like they would just be like so mean for no reason.
mhm.
Yeah.
Been there,
Another
done
day for
that.
another story.
Another day, another trauma loop. That's a good one. That's a t-shirt worthy one.
You guys, we have so many t-shirt ideas.
What do we have real quick? 'Cause I know you gotta run, but what are our t-shirt
Hashtag
ideas?
save it for the pod is number one. Whatever you just said about the toxic one, you need to write that down. Good thing it's recording. We're recording. Um,
I thought I had it saved, like a list saved
I thought you had
somewhere.
a list. Wow, this is now embarrassing. Now I don't
T-shirt
have anything to go off of and my brain can't remember. But
sayings. Oh, I guess I don't. We have save for the pod. If we don't laugh, we will cry.
of
And
course.
another day, another trauma loop.
And there are more, right, you guys? If you're listening and you've heard us say it, just drop it because now we don't remember and we're just
I'm
we're
writing
just
them
we're
down.
just we're just helpless girls, okay? We can't remember everything.
Okay, let's get to our interview. I hope you guys love it. We talk about so many different things from nursing homes to more
Box
autoimmune
cakes
disease,
mix.
box cake mix. Yeah, that was budget cuts. We talk about all of the things. So I hope you enjoy. We are so excited to talk to Gillis here today. I know Gillis. He is one of my mentors in FCS. I'm forgetting what the acronym stands for. Can you explain it really quick?
Sure, no problem. Functional coaching systems.
Okay,
Yeah,
I knew it was
there you go.
functional coaching. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, no
Um,
worries.
but that's how I know Gillis, and he is a functional health coach and an educator. And we are like, we need to have Gillis on here to talk about things like the thyroid, talk about women's hormones, things that we see happen behind the scenes with our clients. I'm like, what better person than Gillis? So Gillis,
Hey,
happy to have you here.
thank you. Appreciate you guys having me on today.
Yeah, can you
Yeah.
give us just a little sorry, Allie, I know I'm gonna talk over
Sorry,
you.
it's okay.
Can you give us a little background on kind of like how you became a functional coach and educator?
Yeah, so like from like an academia standpoint, I've gotten my bachelor's in nutrition, my master's in nutritional sciences and exercise physiology. So that's kind of like the academia side of things. But
Mhm.
honestly, how I've kind of fallen into this role and career, if you will, is kind of far from my academia, to be honest with you. So, I worked as a functional nutrition supervisor in a medical clinic. So I worked in a
Mhm.
nutrition as a nutrition director for a medical clinic. When I say medical clinic, it's more functional medicine
Mhm.
driven there, and I did that for about 4 or 5 years before I kind of transitioned. And I think like everyone else, someone at some point kind of pivoted around COVID. So that's kind of where I kind of went from patient care to client care essentially. So, and here we are.
Mm,
Hmm.
interesting. Okay. Allie, did you have something to say? I didn't want to talk over you.
The thought lost I think it was just being excited because we had a conversation with Alyssa a couple of weeks ago
Mhm.
and I mean, I can't speak for Maddie, but myself just got like so much more insight and it's just really awesome to like hear and learn more about like like functional medicine in that aspect. So I was really excited for this conversation. And when we were coming up with like our list of questions, like Maddie was telling Gillis, like we are not the type of podcast that's gonna be like question, answer, question, answer. So
Sure.
the questions we put together, Maddie and I were like, ooh, these are like really good. And I think a lot of women listening to this are going to be able to learn a lot because
Mhm.
so many times in my experience and working with women, um, you go to the doctor, you kind of bring up an issue and you're not listened to, or there's just like kind of a band-aid slapped on it. And it's really necessary to empower women and like teach them about their hormones and their health and ways to heal their bodies. So I was super excited for this conversation.
Yeah, it's important to like empower people, like in clients specifically, right? If you kind of think of like, and obviously me as a male, when I think about the big picture, like I've kind of gotten used to being around so many females because that's predominantly the career path. But even through my academic career, like when I was in my undergrad, I was the only male in the dietetics program. And so like
Wow.
early
Mm,
on, like that's was the predominant, gender that everyone was there for. But
mhm.
we didn't learn what we were potentially like trying to apply to our clients nowadays. And I'm sure Alyssa probably would certainly kind of attest to her career paths, same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the big things she was saying that she loved working in, I'm forgetting the name right now, but working with
Geriatric.
bariatrics, thank you.
Bariatrics,
Um,
yeah.
and she said, like, she loved it, but just, like, she would have to work through her lunch. She would have people no-show. It was just, like, I can't imagine trying to stay sane and stay healthy yourself, and you're working, like,
Mhm.
insane hours, trying to meet with all these people for, like, 15 minutes a piece at a time, you know?
Yeah, that's such a problem in our healthcare system. And, I think that's everywhere. Because even when, like, and I haven't told a lot of people about this, but even before getting into the functional medicine, I actually worked in a nursing home as a nutrition director. And
Oh,
so I saw
wow.
that side of like
Mhm.
end stage care with also very
Mm.
traditional care, and
Oh,
that was really
mhm.
kind of like hard. But even then, I am literally trying to support 120 patients that are at end stage, where I was in charge from anything from their food modifications to all the clinical charting to meeting with families every Thursday to meeting with the
Wow.
patient. And so having to deal with that, and I never had a lunch. And I would work
Oh,
literally 7 days a week. Like,
wow. That's
mhm,
crazy.
yeah.
Oh
I
my
probably have
god.
PTSD from that. That was like the first show of my life. And I've done some hard things. I've been in military, like military is easy compared to
Wow.
that, man.
That is horrifying. You know what? I have vivid memories when my grandpa was in he had Alzheimer's. So he
Mhm.
was like in not a retirement home, it was like, I guess, assisted living.
Yep.
And I would sit down with my mom and we would sit down with him and pick out his like meals. And it was like, pick a fruit, pick a vegetable. And
Yeah.
like, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And it was like, honestly, those meals, terrible,
Yes.
terrible.
I was the
They were,
bad guy all the time because of that. Like,
I'm
how
sure.
so?
oh,
Well, how are
just
you?
because like you're
Uh-huh.
so limited, because again, you're responsible for a company budget and you're not allowed to go over. And so like
Ah,
you would have the regional manager and they're like just trying to, like, they make money by staying within budget. And for me, I don't. So like I don't have any kind of ties to the financial side of things. And I'm like,
yeah.
man, why are we missing like the basics? Like, why are we like, and they're like, it all comes down to that. But again, so when every time we cut corners, obviously it was something that people like they absolutely despise in food. And
Oh
Yeah.
so it's
god.
like that guy sucks at cooking. That guy sucks at the food that he's buying. Like I was the bad guy. And so, I never tried to put anybody under the bus, but I just remember talking to the nursing administrator. I said, look, man, I'm gonna just let you know right now, like some of the complaints we're getting from the food has a ton to do with our budget. Like some of the things that actually taste good are just too expensive according to the company. And
Oh,
yeah, I
wow.
never
That's
forget that. Yeah,
it's like it's crazy, but that's not shocking at all.
Mhm.
exactly.
It's so fucked up. And then of course it's like people need someone to blame and you're who they see. So it's like,
Oh yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what? Your fault. And oh man, what tough like parameters you have to stick with and you're trying to do the best of your ability to do your job. And that's why, a lot of conversations that we have with people like who have worked in the clinical setting, it is so taxing because
Mhm.
you're not able to do what you feel is like the best care
Mhm.
for
Yes.
your clients or patients. You have to work within the infrastructure.
Exactly. And that's the hard part. I mean, there's times where I've had to like run to like a Sam's Club to go and get food because we were out because the budget literally didn't fit. And I remember talking to the administrator of the building and I said, look, man, I'm going to be honest with you. And he was like fine with me. Me and him had a really great communication because inside the nursing facility, it was two different companies. And so the administrator worked for a different company, but he was in charge of the entire facility. And so he
Mhm.
was like, look, all I care about is that my patients are completely taken care of. If you ever need something, if you run out of something due to budget, let me know. I'll just give you my credit card to run to the store. And so, like,
Oh, that's a nice guy.
yeah, thankfully I had that kind of relationship with him, but you can only do that so many times. Like, you know,
Every
Yeah.
month.
like, yeah. So when you're doing it twice a month, you guys like, okay, like there's a problem here. We need to talk to like who's in charge of you because if you can't afford that, like they need to do something. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
like a ton of bottlenecks that I ran into issues there.
I even
Wow.
feel like those types, like being stuck in the clinical world, gives people who have maybe tried it before, they went to a
Mhm.
dietitian, they went to a nutritionist, it gives them a bad taste about it. Because
Absolutely.
how
Mm,
many times, I mean, I went to a registered dietitian and it wasn't the right fit. And for me, I was like, maybe it's just not what I need, maybe I need something
Mhm.
else. But I didn't
mm.
know what that was because I wasn't aware of like the coaching world yet. But I think there's probably a lot of people that have tried out a traditional dietitian and they're like, well, I had accountability. I met this person once every 8 weeks because my insurance only allowed me to see them every 8 weeks. It didn't work for me. So your thing won't work for me either.
Yeah, and that's the thing with dietitian, like, and I don't, and this isn't as a career, but like,
Mhm.
the curriculum, and I'm sure most RDs would agree with me, is that, it's not designed to have that freedom to really dive in deep into the nutrition world, especially if your interest is into getting into the more complexities of nutrition, like when it comes to like the functional space that has the correlations. It's very kind of segregated as care. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
so, like the dietitian I had in the clinic, because we had to have a dietitian on stand with me and her never got along because she'd been in the clinic for like 35 years. Like her way was the only way. And
Mm.
Uh-huh.
like, man, I'm gonna pick and choose my battles because I was like the younger guy at the time. I was a new guy, and I knew
Uh-huh.
I knew more, but I'm like, I'm not gonna argue with this person. I got like 100 other things I got to be worried about, not like proving a point to this person.
I gotta worry about this damn budget right now. I don't have time.
Exactly.
We're
I
out
gotta
of
worry.
hot dogs. Like, what am I
Yeah.
gonna do?
Yeah. Maddie, you're joking, but like I swear to God, the biggest problem was that we could not afford good like cake mix for desserts, dude. Like I swear to God, like it was the worst thing.
So
I'll never
sad.
forget. It was sad. Like I'll never forget my regional manager trying to explain to me how to make a cake batter from scratch with like flour. I'm just like, dude, look, I don't have time to be doing all of that stuff, or we could buy it in a box. Like
Right.
we could buy it in a box, get it done. Because I was also in charge of my staff, like all the people, cooks, chefs, everybody. So like
Wow.
made their life really hard whenever they're like, because again,
Yeah.
when a nursing home, like everything is time sensitive on food because of medication. Medication has to be given
Right.
with food. So it's not
Oh,
a matter of like you can be late. Like you literally at most got like a 5 minute window to get everyone fed,
oh my
before it becomes a
God.
real
Damn.
problem, because nursing department is like down your throat if not, because they're like, look, my patient cannot take this medication until he has his food. And
Hmm.
so that was a huge issue, and like it was just such a fast pace, like, but also at the same time it had to be very critical. Like there's like food sensitivities, like there's food allergies, like there's all of
Mm.
these
Oh
things.
my God.
People
You
that
do
are on
the job of
dialysis.
like you do the job of like 10 people.
After that
Yeah.
job I feel like everything else is easier if you can get through that, like, and like I've not faced anything as hard as that since.
And like I'm sure it didn't, there was a part of you that's like, I don't feel this connection with
Mhm.
the patients because you're having to, like Maddie said, you're having to wear all these hats, you're doing all these different things. You're in a position where you're not getting that like connection. And that's something that we love to do as coaches, like getting those connections and really being able to see how we're helping somebody and their lives are becoming better, that quality of life
Mhm.
increases. I mean, man, not only is that like draining physically, it's draining mentally. It's like,
Yeah.
what the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah, like that was probably what kept me, and I only there for like a year before I like broke. I couldn't
Yeah.
take it anymore. But
Mhm.
like the hardest thing that kept me there even for that long is like I think about like someone's grandmother that's like 80 years old, like she has like some really really debilitating illnesses that they don't know if she's going to make it next week. And literally the only thing those people really rely on is literally having a really good meal, like something that comforts them. And so the fact
Mm.
that like you're with inside like these limitations of like food at the very
Yeah.
simple, like simplest form of like comfort, you know, that was like the hardest thing for me, is like, man, these people, like, despite all of the challenges from like a company administrative situation, like I'm like, it's not the patient's fault, like it's not their
Right.
fault. Like, I mean, we
Mhm.
had people that would literally drop off, like, and this is so sad, like we had a gentleman that was like in his 80s, and he got dropped off at the front door of the nursing home because his family didn't know how to care for him anymore. To make it
Oh,
worse, he was Korean, so he didn't even speak English, and no one in the facility knew how to speak to him. So there was like a language
oh,
barrier. We like, why is this person in a wheelchair. He's not even a part of the facility. Like,
Ugh.
and so like just dealing with like hard things like that, man, it's like it's mentally challenging.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh
my
my God.
God.
That is so sad. Like I could like sit here and cry. I'm not
I
built
know.
for that. I would be so upset. And the idea, like, I guess you take these things for granted, like just like
Mhm.
having like a nice meal. Like when you are sick and being able to have like a nice soup and you're like, wow, like I feel loved. This is
Mhm.
healing. And then being in a place where you're like, I'm trying to do that for these patients and I can't get shit done because of this arbitrary budget. Like,
Yep.
oh man, that's
Mhm.
crazy. Wow, I've never gotten that type of like insight. So that is like
Mhm.
really, really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it's challenging, like in like the administrative side of the thing was horrible because like most of the people that worked under me were making like minimum wage and they were working hard
Mm.
shifts, like probably some of
Mm-hmm.
the hardest workers there.
Mhm.
But because I'm in charge of like their hours, they're paid hourly, like higher ups, they don't want anyone to go over overtime. So they're
Yep.
like, some of these people have to pull doubles. But then at the end of the day, if they were to do a double come Friday or Saturday, they can't even work according to, upper chain management because they're over on hours. And I'm like, dude, well, how are we going to do that? We're like, well, your salary. So we're going to need you to do this. So like that was the hard part. Like, yeah, yeah, that's why I'm saying like when I say it was hard, like I had all these administrative things, and then like I got a chef that can't work anymore, not because they don't want to, it's because they can't according to upper chain. So guess what? I'm the free guy. I'm the free help because I'm salary. I have to do it all.
Oh,
So
Oh
wow.
my God. This
yeah.
just gets worse and worse.
Yeah, that's why I mean when I say like PTSD from that job, man, it's like that's what kind of was the like ending for me is,
Mhm.
these people that work so hard at a very, very like very little money. They're like, and again, I was the youngest. I don't have kids. So these are like moms, dads that actually like have 3 kids and they're working minimum wage. Like they want to work like double
Yeah.
shifts
Yeah.
to make money because it's not an option for them and they can't. And like here I am, I got to
Right.
stop what I'm doing to go replace them, and then you get people that are just disgruntled and they quit. And
Right.
so,
Yeah, just too many hours, hard labor.
mhm.
Was it
Not
a
enough
lot of like
pay.
right, was it a lot of like nurse assistants, stuff like that?
No, so like the nursing, like your like CNAs were like more on the medical, like on the
Mhm.
nursing side. So like, and this was like nutrition assistants, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, nutrition aides and things like that is what they were kind of classified as, which is honestly it's just a title of like, can you cook? Can you turn on a burner? Can you wash dishes? Okay, you qualified. Like it's like that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I can't
So
imagine those being like, hot jobs to have.
no,
What
they're
was
hard work.
like what was like your like the if you could have any kind of meal, what would be the best meal and what was like the worst meal you ever served?
Oh man. The the best, hmm. I would probably say like lasagna or something like that because it's like
Mhm.
even if you buy the prepackaged stuff and you put it together, it tastes really good. Like
Sure.
it's hard to mess that up, you
Yeah.
know. And so the worst is like whenever there's like I don't know, like, and it's probably gonna sound nasty, but like beef stroganoff or something. Like I'm from the South. I never even made that in my life. Like, so I don't even know what that is. And
I
so
have
Uh-huh.
when
no
it's
idea what that is.
yeah, it's like these beef pieces with like in pasta, and then it's
Wow.
like cream of mushroom. So it's like not
Oh,
even
yeah.
not only like I would not want to eat it, but it's like also not
Mhm.
appealing to the eye. Like, everything looks gray.
Yeah, it does look gray.
Mm.
You're right.
Yeah. And so, but again, like, and they had to make that from scratch. So it's like, it's also at the mercy of somebody that one doesn't know anything they're doing and they're just literally following like because they have to also follow a recipe sheet, like to the T.
To the T.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that
Oh,
was rough.
fun.
I never, honestly, full disclosure, I always brought my own lunch. I never ate the food there.
Oh, I can't imagine. I'd be like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
this looks great."
No,
I'd
I'm
rather
not
I'd
eating.
rather starve.
Yeah. I bought my own food or I cooked it myself.
Especially the budget. You're like, "This could be someone's meal."
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
True,
Yeah.
true.
I
Mhm.
want to take a little bit of a left turn and talk
Yeah.
about when it comes to getting blood work done.
Uh-huh.
let's say, I mean, me and Ali probably heard this, I don't know how many times. I've experienced this with myself and my whole autoimmune thing. But going to the doctor and getting blood work done, and you look at your ranges and you're like, oh, this is like really on the high end. And they're like, oh, it's fine. You're within range. So I want to talk
Mhm.
about like what's the difference between like clinical within range and like what's like optimal? Like what do we really want?
Yeah, so like when you think about like the origin, if you will, in terms of like where do these like arbitrary numbers come from, even like who's making this
Mhm,
stuff up in
mhm,
terms of what's classifying it as like low or high, you
mhm,
know, those things are again, same thing in traditional medicine models, like they are literally there to diagnose disease states. They're not there in prevention medicine, in preventative medicine, you know. So when you think of like these very like wide range arbitrary numbers, usually like a rule of thumb for most healthcare providers that are in the traditional spaces, it's usually 2 to 3 times higher low before they even consider, oh wow, this is a problem. So like for
mhm,
example, if like let's say that the range is, and I'm just going to use the numbers, like let's say the number is 5 and then 50, right? Before doctors even say, oh wow, this might be a problem, that 50 might need to be like 100 to 150. If it's like 85, they're like, oh, you're not, you're just slightly above. I mean, you're fine, right? They're not even going to do anything
mm,
about it. So that's like kind of
Mm-hmm.
the mindset of a lot of traditional physicians or practitioners. That's how they think, in the same spectrum on the low end of things, you know. So they're not looking at symptom specifics, they're literally looking at numbers that say, oh wow, this is a disease state, this disease correlates with this pharmaceutical, and that's
Mm.
essentially the most of it in terms of that case. And so that's kind of the traditional model and kind of how it's laid out. Whereas the functional can be tricky. I will say that, because if you've taken, you could take probably 3 or 4 different types of classes, different types of conferences, and some of the functional ranges are going to be a little bit more precise. There's some are going to have a little bit of difference in variability, right?
mhm,
Like I'll give you an example. So let's say first, like an autoimmune condition such as Hashimoto's related to thyroid, you know,
mhm.
when they look at like the antibodies, there's a lot of companies that might say less than 9. Okay. But if you go to another laboratory company, it might say less than 35. Another one might say less than
Oh,
60, right?
mhm,
Mm.
And so that's where for someone that's in a functional space can get really confusing, because if you're
mhm,
used to seeing the same, like let's just say LabCorp's less than 9, but then they go through another company, maybe it's Quest, and their values are saying less than 30. Well, if you're only used to seeing LabCorp's less than 9, and you suddenly get clients that are having 30 or 35 or 25, now in your mind you're like, oh wow, this is a problem, this is high, you know.
mhm,
Mm.
And so that's why, even though like you have more precision in ranges in terms of
mhm,
functional, but you always want to steel tie that the precise range with symptom.
Mm.
Okay. So
mhm.
symptoms also have to check the box off for what you're seeing in those values, even though they're more like concise in terms of like for that reason.
Wow.
Oh, it's crazy that I never, like you said in the beginning, like a doctor is, how did you say it? It's just is diagnosing the disease, right?
Yes.
I don't know why my brain never comprehended that completely.
That's what they go to school
What
for.
do you mean? Like, what
Me
do you
or
mean you're, yeah, yeah, you. Yeah, no, I know they
oh.
go to, they go to school.
No, no, I meant like they're just there to basically be like, yeah, you have this disease. Like they're
Yeah,
not
to like
there
kind
to
of confirm.
right, right. They're not
Okay.
there,
Yeah.
and you think I would realize this because given my whole history and everything, but like it never really occurred to me like they're not assessing all of the symptoms and being like, okay, this could be happening. How can we, because I guess it's just like the hopefulness,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Sure.
even go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, well, you go to the doctor normally when something is wrong, and you're just
Hmm.
trying to look for like one answer. And I remember when I was trying to figure out, before I got diagnosed with celiac disease, what the hell was wrong. Like I was always puking, I like couldn't eat anything, and it was just like I just need an answer. Like I don't really care
Hmm.
what the answer is. And then the obvious solution was, well, like let's just take it out of your diet. And then there was never, okay, what do we do next? It was like, all right, let's do an upper and lower scope, like again in like 6 months and see how things are going. And at like the age of like 16, I had like 3 colonoscopies. I was like, great. Like this is like so not, this is not cute. But after I started to feel better, like there was never like, okay, how can we, work around this? So you're right in that way. Like I've never, I guess when you explain it that way, I've never thought of it, but
Mhm.
so true. Oh, we just go to get an answer and we're like, all right.
Literally.
Yeah.
I mean, they told me, and I was just on not your quick fix podcast talking about this, like how I'm like, I'm pretty sure I was misdiagnosed. Like I had presenting issues, presenting symptoms. And, I would poke the bear, so to speak, with my rheumatologist, and he'd be like, all right, we'll continue every other week. And I'm like, great. And he's like, what? I'm like, well, wouldn't it be great to be off of this? Like if we found the root cause. His response was like, well, we don't really know a lot about autoimmune diseases. And I was like, yeah, it's
That's probably
apparent.
the most accurate answer he's ever given you.
Yeah,
Probably. Probably. Honestly. And I'm like, yeah, I'm realizing you know nothing, because
I am well aware in this conversation you're not doing anything helpful to
literally.
me.
They go
Yeah.
in and they're
Wow.
like, oh, your shoulder angle looks good. No inflammation in the wrist. Like you're good to go. So
Oh
it's like,
man.
I know, and you think how many people are in debilitating pain, and then they're just
Mhm.
like, you check the boxes for this disease, you're good to go. Here's the medication for the rest of your life. Not like, let's look at things deeper.
Mm.
Yeah. And that's an interesting thing. It's funny that you mentioned like when you said that for rheumatology, right, is who's treating you. Like so, and I know I'm kind of jumping the gun because I haven't really given any insight to any of the audience about like my autoimmune condition, but like to make that point known is that for like when I've had an autoimmune condition diagnosis, it came from dermatology. And then
Mhm.
from dermatology, it stayed in dermatology. And I'm like, why am I not like going to like a specialist? Like, why am I not going to like an immunologist? Because again, surface based, it's like it's showing on the skin. So in their mind, it's like
Mhm.
it's showing on the skin. We're going to go to dermatology, but that's not
Mhm.
the root. That's not the underlying reason for it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, my dermatologist hated me because like I was always the person that like gave deadlines, like, hey, when we getting off of this? Okay, when we adjusting dose? Like, and so I've always kind of kept him on his toes for that. Like, thankfully, he came from like a university where he's seen a lot of different types of patients.
Mhm.
Because my autoimmune condition was rare, and the
What was
dermatologist.
yours?
So it's a skin like an autoimmune skin condition where it's called pemphigus foliaceus, which yeah. So I wish it was someone like something new because like the first when I first walked in that clinic, and I'll kind of preface this a little bit, kind of back up. I was in like I grew up as an athlete, right?
Mhm.
So this was in 2017 ish, and I was in contest prep for getting ready for a show, bodybuilding show. And so I'd already been like on like probably 1250 calories, doing about an hour of cardio, 5 to 6 days a week, just tired. And I've always
Mhm.
kind of contributed like, well, this is what I signed up for. I know I'm going to be tired. Like,
Mhm.
but then when I started developing like these skin conditions, I didn't know where it was coming from. And I just kept pushing, kept pushing. And so fast forward, I couldn't take it anymore. And so I went into the dermatologist, and she was like, okay, take your shirt off. Cause it was like on the trunk core area. And
Mhm.
so when I took it off, I took my shirt off. She's like, oh, wow, we need to get a biopsy. I'm like, do whatever you got to do. Cause I was miserable at the
Oh.
time.
Mhm.
Like, and then a couple of days later, she's like, I got good news and bad news. The good news is it's not fungal. I'm like, well, I could have told you this. It took me 2 months to come to you. Like, I've
Yeah.
been like suffering from this for 2 months. And if it was fungal or bacterial, my wife would have been contagious. Like, so like
Oh,
there's
okay.
no
Yeah.
issue there. Ruled that out a long time ago. She's like, the
Mhm.
bad
Yeah.
news, it's autoimmune. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, I guess the good news is like at least we know what it is. And
Mhm.
so, but I could see her computer screen over. She had Google open, man. She didn't even know what it was. So like, yeah. So like she starts asking me these weird
Damn.
questions. Like she's like, have
Uh-huh.
you ever been to the Amazon River? I'm like, I've never been asked that, but no, I never have.
She's
And
on like
so
WebMD trying to like, okay, what questions
Reddit.
do I have? That's
yes.
She's
crazy.
on
Wow.
Reddit.
How did you
Yeah.
feel like just seeing that? Like, were you kind of like, did you have like no confidence in her? Or you're like, well, I have no idea
Mm.
what this is. Like, what was that experience like? Because I can imagine that's like kind of a weird feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so she was very like straight across, like this is the step, like you got to get on prednisone. I'm like, I don't want to be on prednisone. She's like, well, you don't really have a
Oof.
choice. And I'm like,
Oof.
all right, well, let me get on prednisone. And then so I was on prednisone for like 6 months, 6 or 8 months, like
Oh,
that. Yeah, high dose prednisone, like starting like 60 to 80 milligrams. You know, for those that are listening, like your average dose is like 5 milligrams, maybe 10, and then you're not
wow.
on it more than like a week. You're usually on that stuff for like a week. And
My
so,
sister was on a steroid, like an inhaler steroid, because
mhm,
she has an esophageal condition where
okay.
it's like really, like it's very narrow.
Yep.
And she has a whole host of like food allergies. And I've been like, you should like figure out why this is happening. And, she's just like a free spirit and she just wants to travel. And she's like, it's fine. I'll just won't eat the food I'm allergic to. And I'm like, all right, whatever. But it was crazy because she was on it for so long and she's a bit older than me. So like just now thinking back as, I've talked to Maddy like through her journey. I'm just like, wow, like she was on that for so long and like that was just the option. It's like, why aren't we looking deeper? Like this is like a young, healthy person. So
Mhm.
that's crazy. So you were on it for like 6 months.
Yeah. And then from
Wow.
there, I had to get on immune suppressant medication. So the medication is
Mhm.
for like people that get kidney transplants or any types of organ
Methotrexate.
transplant. Yeah. Yeah. I think we talked offline about that. But yeah,
Mhm.
had to get on that and nothing was working. Like a
Wow.
tablet's 500 milligrams and the most you can go up to 3,000. I was already like titrated all the way up to 3,000 with zero symptom relief. And
Wow.
I was like, look, man, if anything's going to happen, if I've learned anything in my academic career, it's probably reading research in my master's. So let me just start kind of like, I got to dive in and figure out this on my own. Because these
Mhm.
people are just going to keep, like, I was going, like, I'm prior military. So going through the VA system is like, okay, this
Tough.
medication didn't work and you didn't die. Let's start with the next one. Like, that's literally how it works. Like,
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
they give you the worst of the worst. And if you don't
Um,
die and it doesn't work, we go to the next one.
I have a friend who has that blood condition where I don't know if your blood goes like toxic, but in high altitudes,
Mm,
something happens with the blood. I feel like there was a football player that had that and almost died. Um, but anyway, they moved him and his family to Colorado
mm,
and he started dying. And if his wife wouldn't have called the state representative, whoever, and demand they let him leave, he would have died the next day.
Oh
That's
wow.
my
how.
God.
Yeah, it was it they were
What
like
the
they would
fuck?
send him to the nurse's room and just lay down and they were like he's just like they were saying he's just lying and they wouldn't let him go see a specialist. Like it was insane. But yeah, he almost died from that.
Yeah, there's a lot of serious things out there, with that kind of stuff, man. And I went through that. And then so my next step, I had the conversation with the dermatologist, and he's like, look, we'll give it like another couple weeks, but if not,
Mhm.
we're gonna have to put you on a low dose chemotherapy pill. He's like, and these comes with a lot more harsher like side effects. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I'm not trying to get put on chemotherapy at this point, man.
But
And
why
so
that? Why chemotherapy?
because so this type of chemotherapy is a pill that you have to
Hmm.
take. And
Wait, is that one methotrexate that you're talking about, or is that the other one you're
it's
taking?
another
No.
one. So it was like the next
Ah.
scale up of like
Oh
a more
wow.
potent
Wow.
drug.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I'll never forget this. At this moment, like fast forward in my career, I was working in the functional clinic. So I'm like,
Mhm.
I have every doctor looking at me there. They don't know what's going, they never saw it before.
Mhm.
And I came across we ended up hiring a physician assistant and he like started showing me studies that like he actually found. I'm like, oh wow, this is interesting. And then I came across a study that he brought to me at my desk, and I had some time between patients, so I was reading it, and I ended up finding some of the pharmacological like counter contradictives of like certain adaptogens. And I thought
Mhm.
that was fascinating. And then I ended up finding out the same medication I was on was contraindicated with ashwagandha. And so I was taking ashwagandha because I was trying to self-fix. So I was taking
Oh.
ashwagandha, I was taking all of these things. And then
Mhm.
luckily I just stopped everything. I didn't take any supplements. I just stopped everything because I had no idea what was going on. And then
Mhm.
my medication started working, man. I stopped getting flips. And like, that's how it ended up happening.
Wow.
Oh,
Mhm.
wow. That's
That's
insane.
it's like shocking to me in a way and also not that, did they ask you like what like other medications or supplements are you taking? Like, and
Yeah,
did you
they're
just
like,
not
stop
listen
everything.
or
Yeah, they're
okay,
like,
and you were
stop
like,
everything. Because I mean, when
yeah,
the way they were really trying to treat me, I didn't agree with it. But I'm like, okay,
okay.
like I don't know what to do. Like, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta trust you at this point, you
So
know?
Yeah.
did you keep taking like the supplements for a while or did you stop when they said stop?
No, I completely ignored that. I
Okay.
was like, I'm gonna keep
Yeah.
yeah, like I went in
Yeah.
one ear and out the other because I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
Uh-huh.
like okay, they jumped out of their lane. I'm gonna just ignore
yeah,
they
you're
said
like, I got
that.
shit to do. I don't have time for that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Wow.
So
Mhm.
then how long were you on methotrexate or the other things before? Because I know we talked about it. You
Mhm.
ended up getting off eventually of everything, right? Like even the medications.
Yeah, I was on it for about 3 years though.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
3 years at 3,000 milligrams, and then I had no flare-ups for like that last year,
Mhm.
and it just kind of accidentally stepped into this. So what ended up happening is I went on a vacation and I forgot my medication. And
Mhm.
historically, whenever I forgot to take like 1 to 2 days worth, I would start getting flare-ups.
Mm.
Mhm.
And it sucked because the medication had a delay reaction. So whenever you stop,
Mhm.
it's almost like you got to wait a week or two for it to start kicking in
Mhm.
again.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I was panicking, had a lot of anxiety, but I was like, I'm already 6 hours away from home. Already like I got like an hour and a half before I'm like where I'm supposed to be. And so I'm like, man, screw it. I'm just gonna have to figure it out and suck it up until I get back. And
Mhm.
so this is something that I've always been really kind of aware of, like how my body starts reacting to certain things, and I can feel when there's something onset's coming. And I always noticed that whenever the biggest things that triggered my autoimmune conditions was the heat and humidity, which at the time I lived in South Florida, which is the worst place to be for this condition, you know.
Oh.
Yeah, so but I was driving up to North Georgia, Tennessee area in the cabins, and it was the winter times in January. And
Mhm.
so I didn't have any flare ups. But again, it's also like 25, 30 degrees outside. So it's like I had no flare ups at all
Mhm.
there. And I stayed there for 2 weeks, came back home, and I had not had a flare up. So at that point, I'd already kind of forgotten I was taking medication. And a week
Mhm.
passes, and I'm like, oh my God, it's been like almost a month. It's been a little over 3 weeks, and I've not taken my med yet. And I've been home for a week now. And so I said, man, I'm just going to take a leap of faith and I'm just not going to take it. I'm going to just wait for the flare ups to show up. And that was February of 2023. And I've
Oh,
not,
Wow.
wow.
yeah. So like it's been a year, like just came up on a year a couple of months ago
Mhm.
that I've not been on anything, and not thankfully, knock on wood. I don't want to say that after this
Yeah,
podcast.
knock I got some wood.
Literally. So, you don't know, like, what caused it? It was, like, the humidity and heat? That was, like, the 2 things that, like, caused the reaction, but not started it?
Yeah, it was the weirdest thing, man. Like, because it was definitely the skin would have the reaction to the UV rays and then the humidity. And
Oh.
Mm.
what sucked is that it really kind of completely sabotaged any level of like exercise and training. So I couldn't even walk on a treadmill for 10 minutes before having flare-ups. So like I had to cancel my gym
Oh,
membership. I couldn't work
Oh
out
my
anymore.
god.
I felt completely
wow.
just paralysis by that, like in terms of health. And that
Oh,
was the
I
most
know that
Yeah.
frustrating.
feeling.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's so hard because you're coming from such like a physical lifestyle,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you're doing competitions and then all of a sudden you're like, I can't do something that is so simple to me without
Hmm.
having such an intense reaction. And like the whole process sounds incredibly stressful mentally, physically, but then to like have to drastically change your lifestyle,
Yeah.
it's like I feel like I'm losing a part of my identity. And
Oh,
that's
Mhm.
100%. Yeah.
wow.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Wow.
me and my primary man, we always butted heads because he
Oh,
never would
really?
talk to my dermatologist. And I'll never forget this.
What
Again,
the
this
hell?
is COVID. Yeah, like COVID. And so we're on Zoom calls together, and he would look at my chart. And again, when I got diagnosed, man, I was in contest prep. I was like 156 pounds at the time. Like I was
Oh,
really in
wow.
prep. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like here he is, he's looking at my chart and he sees that like I'm 195. And he's like, "Oh, you've put on some weight. Do you need to speak with the dietitian?" I'm like, dude, I said, "Look, man, I am the dietitian." I said, I said, I said, let me just break this down to you. I said, that's what happens when you've been training for 20 years of your life and you do nothing. I said, the appetite doesn't go away. And when you can't do anything, what are you going to do? You're going to eat.
Yeah.
I
Oh
said,
my.
so I'll worry about the weight. I said, but yes, that's why the weight is where it is, man. I said, that's what happens when you can't do that. And he's like,
I'm the
But
dietitian.
also, like, what, like, doctors are so quick to be like, you're fat, so that's the problem. And it's like,
Literally.
um,
oh,
like, what? Like, I remember, my, like, childhood primary, doctor. I was in like 4th grade, and I don't like, I was a kid. Like, would I call myself fat? No, like, whatever. She was like, "Okay, so like you're a little bit overweight, we're going to need to start doing." And then I was like, "Thank you for now putting that into my child brain."
A
And now
fourth grader.
I was like,
yeah.
"Girl, like you're crazy." And so then it's just like every time I would go to the doctors, for a while, it was like, great. Like if anything's wrong, it's always weight related. And I hear
Mhm.
that, with clients, and just, you hear it all the time. And it's like you're suffering. You're not talking to your doctor's not talking to the derm. You're like, this has nothing to do with the weight. Like,
Yeah.
let me take care of that. Man, that is rough. You needed to get them in like a fucking group chat, like people communicate, because this is wild.
Yeah. He would always start the conversation and he'd go, "Mr. Pellegrin, how is your rash doing?" I said, "First of all, it's not a rash, but I wish it was just a rash." I said, "It's actually an autoimmune." I'm like, if you read my chart, man, it's not a rash. Like,
Mr.
yeah,
Rash.
Oh
it
my
was almost kind of
God.
like disrespectful. I took it as disrespect when he would say that because it's like, this is not the first
Yeah.
time we talk about it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've said
Damn.
this story 100 times. When I was super, super, like super sick before I took any medication, I had gained a ton of weight.
Mhm.
I couldn't walk anymore. Like you said, like the identity of me being in the health and fitness world was like completely shot
Yeah.
because I couldn't do anything. And
Mhm.
so like you come use food for comfort. And I remember going to the rheumatologist, and I don't think he said anything at the time about my weight, but then when I lost a ton of weight, when I was on medication and was able to walk and move and exercise again, he was like, "Oh, I see you've lost some weight." Because it was like, 6 months stretch
Sure.
between when I would see him. And he's like, "Well, what you need to not do is don't be like Oprah Winfrey. You can't gain weight and lose weight." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." And like he's sitting there, not the picture of health, like telling me not to be Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah. As he
Oh
smokes a
my
cigarette,
God.
talking to you, like,
Probably,
Probably.
probably.
Probably. Oh my God. The amount of doctors that I know that live incredibly unhealthy lifestyles, and then they go to their patients and like point out things, and it's like, you know, that maybe we need to look deeper, because like this surface level shit, it's not cutting it. And oh man, that's
Hmm.
crazy. I mean, for you being in the clinical space and then also having this experience, I'm sure it really lends to like the type of coach you are
100%.
today. And like you're so receptive to like actually like hearing and listening to your clients, because like you have your own experience.
Yeah, because I mean, I know what it's like to suffer, and I can kind of resonate when people are like in a very vulnerable state, and it's like,
Yeah.
they're like, there are times and places, and as a coach, there is a time and place to kind of, you have to sometimes detach emotionally to be able
Yeah.
to make a very accurate decision in that client's life, right? Because and that's a lot of times, like, that's a whole nother conversation that I oftentimes see, but I also live that in the functional medicine side. And that was
Hmm.
something where when COVID hit, I kind of pivoted in that sense, because what I was seeing was, I mean, again, same concept, just like in the functional space, if you look at like our career path and what we do as coaches, we have a majority of our rosters are probably mostly women, right? There are
Hmm.
not a lot of,
Mhm.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of males out there, but for the most part, if you look at our career path, like nationally, it's mostly women that are out there that are seeking services from coaches or help, assistance in that sense. And a
Mhm.
lot of it, I saw the same thing in the functional medicine space, man. It was majority of them were women that were coming in that were doing very quick fixes, very chronically, low calorie dieting. And for me, again, like when you're working under someone, you get evaluated. So again, your job is kind of on the line in that nutrition department, in that position is like, okay, well, here's your 6-month evaluation. Like, why is such and such not losing weight? Why are these people not, why'd they stop coming?
Oh.
Like, so you're like, I'm getting the pressure on me in that sense. And so I would, thankfully I can pull charts, I can pull and I can import like a spreadsheet, and I can have like 300-400 people in there, and I can have it categorized of like those people that are successful with weight loss, and then those people that are not successful weight loss. And then what I started doing to really kind of protect myself in the clinic was that every person I kind of I broke the spreadsheet down and organized it to like, why are those people not receptive to weight loss? Why are they weight loss resistant? Like, what are the other things? Because again, the beauty of being in the clinic is that I can pull their chart. I can see every conversation of care plan from the doctor, what was said. I can see what was
Mhm.
recommended from the physician, and what that individual patient either um wanted, like they moved forward with, or they didn't move forward with, right? Like
Mhm.
what was the outcome? And a lot of times for most of the people that were not losing weight were extremely problems with their thyroid. And
Mhm.
again, it's because either knowingly or unknowingly they like eating like sub 1,000 calories, you know
Mhm.
and so that was kind of like the good and bad of it. I learned a ton on the like endocrine system and just working with doctors in the hormone space. But I started putting my own mix on nutrition because I didn't really agree with what was being kind of put out there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was something there. I'm like, look, man, just don't even worry about what this company has in the book. I said, what are you eating? I would just like take a pen and paper just like this. And I would just start
Mhm.
writing out things. And just based off of what I said, you should probably be eating this, this, and this. Here's a couple
Mhm.
websites that might be some good resources for you. I'll see you
Mhm.
next week. And I put it in my calendar for them to come back, because they would come in weekly to me.
Mhm.
But what was happening is that I was getting so booked because I was going up and beyond. No
Mm.
other nutrition person there was getting anybody in
Uh,
office. And so then I started
uh-huh.
getting questions like, Gillis, like we might need you for some medical sales. And I see that you have like 15 patients coming in today to see you. And so I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do. And so if I were to like miss work, all them patients would cancel. They would even call before they would come and see if I'm working. And if I'm not there, they would just, well, we'll reschedule. And
Wow.
so, yeah.
Wow. What were they providing for the patients when it came to their thyroid compared to what you were? I
So
mean, obviously, besides like you were actually helping them.
yeah, so like it was a templated book that tells you to eat like certain amount of calories according to that. We used InBody. So like that InBody
Mhm.
scale that can check
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
their skeletal muscle mass, adipose tissue, all of that stuff. And then from there would be like little charts based off of where you kind of fell in there, how many calories. And that was literally it. And then behind the book is like, here's foods that you can kind of eat. And then here's like recipes, but that was
Mhm.
it. It was such a templated stuff, and I just didn't agree with
Yeah.
it because I didn't see that that was the problem for most people,
Yeah.
Mhm.
that they were running into. And a lot of it wasn't practical either for some of these people that are coming in. Some of these people are extremely busy, other business owners that are traveling. They're only in Florida like 1 week out of it, like 1 week out of the month. So like, how does that
Right.
even relate to those types of people? And so I just started trying to just like, honestly, I just started working from the hip. I just started kind of going intuitively to like my thoughts and my intuition on just listening to them. Every consult was like a half hour. So I would just really kind of organize my time, hear them out. After about 15 minutes, I got to start putting a plan together for you. Like, so something
Yeah.
that you can take that's going to have some substance there, you know.
Yeah.
And what kind of facility was it?
It was a functional medicine clinic. We had 5 clinics. So I'd also have to
Oh.
travel from different
Oh,
locations.
wow.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Wow. I feel like that, like, I can't remember who I was talking to, but we were talking about just getting into the functional world. And I
Mhm.
feel like one of the things that holds people back is because there are so many options out there.
Yes.
Just like even this, like beach body and whatever crap
Mhm.
thing people want just for getting, in shape.
Yeah.
And there's so many options, so it's kinda like, I don't know what to do, and you try to trust something and you might get burned,
Yes.
and then
I
it
absolutely agree.
it defeats you from wanting to try again.
It does. It
Yeah.
puts it could put a bad taste in your mouth because and that's why even like I was telling you earlier about like the clinical values, how like it's different, right? And so you can't really hold that as like the gold standard all the time. There
Mhm.
Mhm.
comes a point where you have to look at it and develop a stronger skill set on the symptoms, correlating, kind of communicating with the client that way. And that's how you work. You kind of work
Mm.
from that out to kind of build that because everyone is going to be very individual. For one person's optimal is another person's suboptimal or another person's too high, even
Yeah.
inside the functional range.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's it's so mm, it's so frustrating still, but I think we're coming into a better place where people are trying to dive in deeper and they're not
Yeah.
settling for just like these face value things.
Mhm.
And that is such like it's such a crazy like trend to see change like back
Yeah.
like like when you like first started when you were working in clinics and like even just like in just like personal experiences like what was going to the doctors like and what were even when it was it 20 I think it was like during COVID I was trying to get like extra blood work done and my doctor's like well I don't know if I just like I'm probably not going to order it like it's not going to be covered and I'm like I don't care I'm like I'm telling you can you please
Yes.
order this shit for me and it took like so long and now I'm finding like a new primary because I moved and I'm like being so I'm putting so much more thought into like looking at like who is go or who can I choose best that like is going
Yeah.
to like see me and understand me and like advocate for me because so many times it's just like checking boxes unfortunately.
Yeah, I can't
Mhm.
tell you how many times I've actually called clinics three-way with my clients that needed help in their area
Yeah.
just so I can, one, prepare them to catch either green lights or red flags, like, and
Mm,
and how the conversation kind of goes. Like, because I've gotten burnt by just simply saying, hey, this functional clinic seems to be good. They got great reviews, go there. And then I find out like it was completely the opposite, you know
Mm.
yeah.
and I'm sure the company that I used to work for, I won't put any names out there because a lot, but I'll just give you guys, and this is good for anybody that's listening, is that a lot of times, like most of the patients that would come in, as soon as they walked out the door, they would get a text showing, like, can you please review us? And so, but the thing is, the reviews are all in house. So if it's outside of house, they can control that narrative. So
Mm.
basically, if someone were to say something bad, we get rid of that review. So yeah.
Oh.
And so, hey, look, this person has a 4.9 review and they got 2,000 reviews. There got to be a good clinic. But again, it might have took 10,000 reviews to get that 2K
Oh my god.
4.9. And again, they
It's
can
like
control
people
the narrative.
deleting comments on social media or like
Exactly. Same thing,
that
man.
is so crazy.
That's
Mhm.
wild.
Now I
Yeah.
will like not be trusting any reviews and I will be like going in with like my notepad and questions.
Yeah, but Ali, that's why it's important to empower, kind of going back to empowering
Yes.
your clients to know that question, they know the important questions to ask, but also
Mhm.
know what to expect from a response. Like
Yes.
they need to
Mm.
know based off of what that practitioner is saying is like, that doesn't seem like it's something that I should pursue, or it seems like they probably tell everyone this, or it just seems too good to
Mhm.
be true, you know?
Mhm.
Mm. Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
give us a few things that are, like, definitely a red flag, like, do not go back there?
Yeah, I mean, so right now in like the hormone space, especially in medical clinics, it's
Mhm.
using the pellet therapy. So where it's the bioidentical pellets. So instead of
Yep.
doing injections or instead of other like oral, they do these pellet procedures where they're pellets that get a surgical procedure in the like the hip top buttocks area that gets inserted right underneath the subcutaneous fat layer. And what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to naturally kind of be time release where the hormones kind of come up and it doesn't get very high spikes, and in thought minimizing those like side effects when you get really high values from doing like injections, for example. And I'm speaking more like testosterone as an example, right? Plus, the what sounds very like appealing to the person is that they don't need to do weekly injections or bi-weekly injections. And for a woman, it lasts 3 to 4 months. For a male, it lasts up to 6 months. So when you have somebody that doesn't want to deal with it they only have to deal with it 3 to 4 times a year, and they just stay feeling much better. It's of course it's very appealing. But here's the downside and the downfall. The reality of it is that you don't know how you're going to react to that until it's already in. And once it's in, you can't go to that clinic to get it removed. You got to go to urgent care or the ER to get it surgically removed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so if you have adverse reactions, all the clinic's going to tell you go to the ER or go to urgent care. Like they're not going to do removals there. And so you can have some very severe things, not to mention that your body is very, very you're not going to outsmart it. And so if you're having a reaction to it, your immune system and your body is going to push it out. I've literally have patients that would, because we had cell phones, work phones, and they would send me pictures and they're in the shower and they're taking pictures of their hip and there's like a pellet that's bloody on the floor in the shower and one protruding out of the skin because the body is pushing it out through the surface of the epidermis.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, the visual.
Exactly.
I mean, but like that's, our bodies are so smart in that way, which is like crazy.
It's like
How painful is
evacuate.
that? That's crazy. Not only now, like if you get the pellets put in and then you have adverse reactions, then you also have to you have another bill on your hand to go and get it taken out. And that's another stress on your plate when you're already stressed out. Your body's already experiencing. Oh, wow. That
Plus,
is
if it
crazy.
goes excessively high, there's nothing you can do about it. You got to ride the wave until it's kind of it dissolves. So
Goodness.
you're getting like for a woman, if you're getting unwanted hair growth, if you're losing hair because your testosterone goes through the roof, guess what? You just kind of have to ride it out.
Right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is like one of those things that like it sounds great. It's low maintenance, but then a lot of people or it's not going to be explained that deeply of like all the adverse things that could happen. That's crazy. Wow. Wow.
That even reminds me of like what is there's maybe one or two of like there's a spider on me, sorry. There was like maybe one or two random 1 or 2 different birth controls. I want to say one of them is a depot shot and that one is like where they inject it, right?
Yes.
Into your arm. I've heard some gnarly side effects from that one.
Yeah, depot is probably one of the worst when it comes to like weight gain and all of these like issues. Some women can lose their cycle. Some women can actually bleed the entire like 3 to 4 months straight. Like I've seen both sides of that.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it has probably like from a literature position, it's probably the one that shows the highest amount of weight gain. Like when it comes to that. Yeah.
And again, you're looking at like the convenience factor because you're like, okay, if I don't want, an IUD or the Mirena thing or taking, my pill every day, this is great. I don't have to think about it and I don't have to get, a procedure done to put it in. And I think a lot of people, and that would have been my thinking years ago, but now it's like, whoa, like let's actually like pause and think, well, what happens if I don't react to this? Like, what am I going to experience? And yeah, that's crazy because you already have everybody has so much on their plate, and it's like if I can make my life a little bit easier by not having to remember.
Exactly.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. Seen a lot of
Maddy,
different
did you want to
interesting
hit?
people there.
Did you
Say it
want to
again?
hit any He's seen a lot of interesting people. Sorry, we're
Oh.
both talked. I'm like,
Can we talk all at once?
yeah, literally. Did you want to hit any questions that we haven't hit specifically?
Um, okay. So we don't go like really, really long because me and Allie could literally talk forever. Um, just to kind of put a pin and finish that thought, if you are wanting to go see a functional coach for someone who's
Mhm.
listening, what maybe one or two things they should look for within a functional coach so they know they're making the best decision?
Mm.
That's a really good question, and that's a loaded question.
A condensed answer.
Yeah. So the best way I can really put it is obviously see where their experiences are
Mhm.
outside of like the coaching world, right? Like, do they have any clinical experience? If so, like, what was that? Like, how long did they spend? Do they have any levels of credentials outside of taking, just a course that another coach did? Like, I'm going to be the first to tell you that I would, and I've always said that with me running functional coaching systems, is that like this is not going to make you an expert. It's going to give you a little bit more practical application, and based off of what I know and what I've gone through my own experiences is to kind of help you bring you up to speed. But if they're seeking a functional coach, just kind of seeing what their level of, like, what's their resume look like.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are so many coaches right now. There's this like wave of healing and
Mhm.
gut issues and hormones, and it's just now everybody's like, oh, I must have something wrong with me. And being wary of who you are trusting, because it's a lot of work that goes into these sorts of things, and you want to make sure you're working with somebody that is qualified, so like asking the questions. And I think sometimes people can kind of be afraid of that, but like I
Mm-hmm.
love when people ask me like the hard questions, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I'm confident in what I do, and I want you to test me on that. Because it's an investment, it's your health, it's your life. You don't wanna be, making things worse, like, unknowingly.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Another thing I'll say too, just to kind of add to that, and hopefully this doesn't ruffle any feathers. I won't call anybody out. I promise. I
We're all
promise.
for ruffling feathers. No, I'm kidding.
But what I will say, another thing that you have to be very cognizant of, if they're bigger companies, like
Mhm.
large
Mhm.
companies, because what I've seen behind the scenes is I've seen a lot of women or a lot of things on social media that are like, this person's Hashimoto's is going, or this person's, insulin resistance is going. And
Mhm.
but if you look at the caption, and the real truth is a lot of them are on exogenous levels of therapy that's not being said. And
Mhm.
so these
Mhm.
bigger companies have much bigger access. So it's not only not good for the client, but it's not good for us as an industry of coach either, because that can make us
Mhm.
feel a little frustrated of like, what's our inabilities? Like, why are they making the great progress? And what am I doing wrong? And it's nothing
Yeah.
Yeah.
that you're doing wrong. It's just that you're not being told the complete story, because some others have larger access to certain types of therapies that we don't. And
Mm.
so
Mhm.
that's probably, if I were to say, that's my biggest frustration in the industry as a whole, is you see that a lot. And it not just me, but it's a lot of other coaches that are out there that just feel like, man, I'm just not good enough, because I'm seeing them, they're producing great clients, they're making like all of these functional cases completely healed. And man, but are they? Like,
Mm.
you
Mm.
Mhm.
know, if there was
Yep.
a same equal level of playing field, the outcome would be that you would probably at worst make the same progress they're making, with their clients,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
funny you say that. I think I know which one you're talking about because I'm not gonna name them, but
sure.
whenever I was going down the route of like, who am I gonna work with? I
Mhm.
interviewed 10 coaches, 10,
Yeah.
and some of them were from bigger companies, and a few of them I didn't even talk to a coach. I talked to just a sales rep, basically.
Yes. Mhm.
And I would ask
Mhm.
many, many questions because I'm like, my goal was to get off Humira before 30. And I'm like, I need to know this person can help me. And, the one I asked, like, what does a plan of action look like for someone like me? And it was a lot of, we have all of our clients do X, Y, and Z. I was like, really? You have
All
all
of
of
your
them?
clients?
That's a
Hmm.
red flag.
Yeah, that's a red
Yeah.
flag. Yeah. And I was like, really? Yeah, they all have to do that. I was like, goodbye. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to follow a plan that
Doesn't that
everyone else
seem
follows.
odd as that's coming out of your mouth? Like we're all different. We're all suffering in some way, but oh, just do the same thing. It's yeah, like what the
Yeah.
fuck?
That
Same
person's
thing
not
as
great at
a,
sales, by the way.
you know what? She was actually pretty good at sales until I probably asked her questions she's not used to getting.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah,
because
you were
I'm
pushing,
oh yeah, I was like, give me everything, like, basically.
which
And but
you
go ahead.
should. You
Right,
should.
right.
Yeah.
And I think not every buyer, client is
Mhm.
used to that, but from being in the world and being a coach, like I want to make sure I'm connecting and asking the right things and know what I'm getting into. So I think, yeah, that is something I really looked at was like, who am I working with? What are they telling me? Are they just saying, yeah, you're going to get fixed or we're going to heal you in 6 months? No issue. That's not
Boy.
the case. The functional world, that is not the case. Even I know
Yeah.
Gillis can say
Yeah.
that
I
it's
mean,
not the case.
Yeah.
to be fair, if you think that's the case, you're not surrounding yourself with the right supportive educated people because it's it's so complex, right? And I had an experience with a big company, um and I was trying to work through some hormone things that were happening. The plan was dog shit. It was horrible. I was like taking 85 different pills a day. I was like, this is a lot of fucking money. I'm getting fat. This is not helping my mental health. I'm not being told what we're doing, why we're doing it. I just feel like I'm
Mhm,
bleeding money. Um,
mhm,
and so the idea of trying to focus on maybe working through, we were talking with Alyssa, working through like, maybe being able to heal my body and being able to like eat wheat again one day, if that's a possibility. I am like so jaded. I'm like, yeah, like I am going in with like assuming all of these red flags because I had the worst experience. And
yeah,
yeah, I think, shop small, people. If that is like if that is your,
literally.
you walk away with, go with people that actually like know your name and like you can get a
Mhm,
genuine feel for.
Yeah, and at best, man, be a really good interviewer. Because for us as coaches,
Yeah.
we shouldn't be closed off on wanting our clients to interview us. Like, honestly,
Hmm.
it helps us
mhm,
because if they're asking these really pertinent questions for their
mhm,
needs and they're asking the right questions, not only that, if you can give them the answers they're looking for, because it's just literally what you do, it's going
Yeah.
to be
mhm,
a much better fit for one. The expectations are really there from the very
mhm.
beginning versus,
Mm,
if you're not asking the right questions, then, you're going to really fall into some like really tricky things that you may have not thought in terms of like what that expectation kind of was.
Mhm.
totally. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
It's such a great point. And I think, as we all work with a lot of women, I do make myself very clear. I'm like, ask me the questions. Like nothing is too much. Like this is
Mhm.
your space. Um,
Mhm,
because in a lot of settings, like especially like, going to your doctor, maybe you get shut down too many times and then you stop asking the questions you
mhm.
want to ask. So this is like we are on the mission to empower our people to
Yeah.
ask the questions and to, to take a look deeper and to like not settle.
Yeah, that and have some
Mhm.
perseverance too, and not.
Mm.
The reason I say that is because there's going to be times that you're going to have to be okay with getting rid of a doctor to go to another one.
Yep.
Mhm.
If you're not getting the answers after a couple of times, you got to be okay with not letting yourself get super frustrated because
Yep.
wow, this doctor is like they failed me again. They're still not listening to me.
Mhm.
Again, you go to the second doctor and they're doing the same thing and it's not what you thought it
Mhm.
was. Like you're going to have some perseverance because
Mm.
it's very rare that you find a doctor from the start that's
Mhm.
literally willing to work with you. Like I've had clients that actually work with doctors and I'll order the labs myself and the doctor encourages that and the doctor's like, "Oh, I need this. Can you have him order these?" Like, sure, yeah, I don't care. Like I do whatever.
Yeah.
Like you know, the fact that we can work concurrently together, and I'm not trying to replace what they're doing, and they're at least receptive to what I'm doing with that client, that makes such a beautiful relationship in that case. Because at that point, we're not like, I'm telling the client one thing and the doctor's telling his patient something, and it's like, it's just not in a proper alignment. I've had those cases before, and when I sense those cases right out of the gate, I tell them right out, look, this is not going to work if we don't like figure something out. And I'm like, look, I can, the difference between me and the physician is the physician's going to see you every 6 months. I'm seeing you, I'm in the trenches with you every week, man. So like, I can't replace what they're doing, but I will hear you out. And so,
yeah, I would say it's pretty close to replacing. As someone who has been, you know, Alyssa's client at one point, and now with my new coach, Julie, like my rheumatologist, what do I see you for, dude? Like, hopefully July is like maybe one of the last times I'm going to see him, maybe one more time after that. But he didn't do anything, literally. Didn't tell me to lift weights, didn't tell me to focus on strength, doesn't talk about nutrition, literally nothing. I mean, the first rheumatologist, thank God he retired, but I mean, I was like experiencing suicidal ideation. Do you think he asked me about my mental health going from a healthy 20-year-old to a very depressed, can't walk, can't move, can't hold a water bottle 21-year-old? No. No, he wasn't doing any of that. I mean, like if I wasn't on Humira, I would not be here. And that wasn't because of his helping. It was because I was just like, I have no choice. I have to do this, you know? And it sucks that's the position I was in, and I'm glad I was able to get the help I could now, but I don't attest any of my healing or anything to what my rheumatologists have done, because they've just really dropped the ball. And maybe that's always put a bad taste in my mouth for doctors, but the functional world has done so much for me. So I know it can help someone else too. That's why I'm like a big advocate for it, of course.
Yeah, and Maddy, I appreciate you opening up to say that, because it's something that I resonate with, just you saying kind of like where your mental health was in that sense, because that just goes to show like it really matters like who is in your corner, who is in your circle, like in terms of support systems too, because that was some of the things that I've kind of went through with the functional clinic I work with that I didn't care for. Was every person that came in my clinic was usually, unfortunately, they had already been kind of like never heard by their primary, never heard by their OB, never heard by their endocrinologist. So like, unfortunately, we were a cash pay clinic, but we're also their last resort. So by the time they come to us, they were completely vulnerable and distraught and very emotional, you know, where I'm a very like literature, science person. I'm not a sales. I'm the farthest thing from a salesperson, man. And so like, I get that businesses have to have salespeople and but that just wasn't what I came for when I was hired there. So to be also having to be kind of both, like I was very cutthroat, like, okay, you can't afford it. This is what's wrong with you. I understand this is not cheap. Like, have a nice day. Like, that was the thing. Like, I didn't pull on like, oh wow, this person is really vulnerable. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, man, I've had women crying at my desk, and I'm like just quiet, trying to like, you know, I just felt terrible for them, you know. But then I've seen salespeople like, man, the next thing you know, this same woman that's crying is like smiling and laughing, leaving, but she just spent like 12 grand. I'm like, so that was a problem I had, like from an ethical standpoint, is like that salesperson seeing a very vulnerable person and sold them a dream. Like, they sold them a dream. And like, that was just never my personality or my nature. Like, that was like, look, I'm sorry that you're going through this. You know, thankfully, like, there are some things that we can probably do to help you. This is why you're experiencing and feeling the way you are. So like, at best, at least you kind of gotten some answers on why you're feeling this way. And, you know, Dr. So-and-so, she would be willing to hear you out. Every time we do lab reviews, the doctors spend at least an hour with you, talking to you and going through it. You know, so like, I've always been transparent and telling them what that cost is going to look like, because I always felt like, man, if I sugarcoat things or if I tell them something that's false, it always comes back on me. I've never had luck with that kind of stuff. So
yeah, never had. I don't think anyone. Well, maybe not. people that buy programs they think is
Mhm.
like, this is the answer, and it's
Yeah.
a bunch of like bullshit stuff
Mhm.
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
just sell you the dream, which is a really good point. That is a good point.
Yeah. So that's why again, it still goes back to like making sure that clients know how to ask the right questions. In order for
Mhm.
them to know how to ask the right questions, they have to have some level of teaching and learning,
Mm-hmm.
like why their
Mhm.
bodies are operating this way, why this might be the case. Like they're not broken permanently. There's,
Mhm.
this is a phase in their life. And unfortunately, this also didn't happen overnight. And so
Mm-hmm.
this is going to take some time, and you're going to have to be patient, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That was great. We're definitely gonna have to have you on again because, like I said, I'm like, we're probably not gonna hit those questions because we had to go down the rabbit hole. It's fine. I was interested about nursing homes, so
Yeah. That
Yeah.
was really like surprisingly interesting.
it was.
Damn, like the more you fucking know.
Yeah,
Yeah, two opposite spectrums of health though. Like,
Yeah.
100%. Gillis,
mhm.
where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. You can find me just my first name, Gillis, and then the number 331. And so you can find
We'll
me
put that in the
there.
show notes.
Yeah, yeah, we'll put that all there. Well, yeah, it was super great. We're definitely gonna have to do a follow-up, cover all of more hormone stuff and
Sure.
thyroid stuff and all the things. But yeah, you can stay on. We're gonna close it out later.
Okay.
But
Okay.
that's it. Thank you guys so much for listening or watching the Kinda Hot, Kinda Healthy. Please make sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share this with your girlfriend who needs to hear this. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere where you can stream podcasts. If you have a burning question about life, friendships, health, and 1 or 2 cents, email us at kindahotpod@gmail.com. That's KINDAHOTPOD@gmail.com. Bye.
Bye.